Okay, so good evening, and nice to be here. I'm happy to be here. We improvised this shir today, as you know. Every week I'm giving an English shir on the parsha. It's called Soul of the Parsha, and then I posted it on YouTube. So anyway, I was going to do a shir. I just didn't know if I was going to do it in front of the camera alone, or I would have some people. So I'm glad that you're here. And yeah, so we are now in Parshas Mishpatim. Last week was the giving of the Torah, Ma'amad Har Sinai, Parshas Yitro, and we were standing beneath the footsteps of the mountain, and Hashem revealed itself and gave us the Torah in this monumental event. And now we're moving into the details, the Mishpatim, the laws, the intricacies of the laws, different laws regarding one man and another. So we're in the realm of Ben Adam Lechavero, relationship between people. We moved from a very, very divine, godly, miraculous, supernatural event back to the level of human beings and their interactions and how to create a just society. And now every week when I'm trying to look for an idea, the Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe of Chabad, he said one should live with the times. And what he meant was that one should always look for connections between what he's reading in the weekly parsha and what's going on with his life. Right? You have to live with the times. The times are the Jewish times. That's the parsha. But it's also what's happening in our lives, and we have to make the connection. So I'm always trying to keep an eye or an ear out for an interesting event that would help me choose the topic. So this week the most unusual thing that's happening to me is that I'm in South Africa, and being in South Africa, one of the things that struck me the most walking around here, that you are all used to, but for me was just a complete surprise, was seeing the electrical fences around every house. And the first time I saw it was in Cape Town, and I thought, wow, this house has an electric fence. And then I thought, oh, this house also has an electric fence. And then coming here, I realized, okay, so all houses have electric fences. I saw one house in one of the streets here that didn't have an electric fence. It had barbed wire. And I was undecided what's more nice to look at. So, shalom. And then I started talking with people about this, and they said, yeah, well, we have a lot of robbery here, so we'll have robberies. And my host told me a story of how he was hijacked at gunpoint, and then someone else told me a story, and someone else told me a story, and I realized this is part of what's life around here like in certain areas. And I actually looked up today on Google, and I saw that South Africa is either number 4 or number 6, depends on the survey or the research, in robberies around the world, in robbery rates around the world, and first in the continent of Africa. So that got me thinking about robberies, and about stealing, and about thieves. And one of the commandments in this parsha is, in two verses, talk about the prohibition to steal. And so I thought about thieves and stealing. And that made me remember a very, very beautiful and famous and interesting Hasidic Torah, an idea, that talks about thieves. Not only talks about thieves, it talks about things we can learn from thieves. As if every human being in the world has a divine spark, and everyone is rooted in somehow in godliness, and Hashem is present everywhere, He's omnipresent, then there's something to be learned from everything, and something to be learned from everyone. And we even were told, one should be humble, have humility before every other person. And we know of Moshe Rabbeinu that he was Ve'ish Moshe anav me'od michol ha'adam asher pnei ha'adama. He was more humble, had more humility than any other person on earth. And some of the interpreters say even more than a goy oved avodah zarah, a Gentile who's an idol worshipper. And then something very interesting happened, and that was really the spark, was that my hosts, you know them, that's Sean and Joanne. And Joanne is now in the process of writing a book about psychology. And she gave me a copy of the book, and I just opened at the first page of the introduction. And there's a well-known rule: if you want to start a book, you have to start with a grabby opening. You have to start with a story, not with ideas or with something that immediately grabs. And it was a very grabby opening. And the story was about how a few years ago, she was in her home, and suddenly the maid shouted that robbers broke into the house. And there were children there, and the husband wasn't at home. It was a very, very frightening situation. And then, writes Joanne, the author, she's writing, suddenly years and years of Hasidic learning in a very instinctive way, because you don't have time to think, you're not like you're remembering, you're thinking, you're rationalizing, what you should do now, where it suddenly became second nature. They became like an instinct. And she told herself immediately, I have to focus on the fact that there must be good within this thief, within this robber who just broke in. And I don't know how, but this is going to help me survive this moment. And then one of the children, one of the boys, started crying and became hysterical almost, and they were all on the floor. And then she calmed him down, and she said, don't worry, nothing will happen to you. This isn't a bad man, he's just hungry. And that's all he is. And then, at that moment, the intruder, the robber, also stroked him and said, your mother is right, I'm not going to hurt you, it's true, I'm just hungry. So beautiful, amazing story. I don't know how it turned out in the end. Maybe you'll tell me later. But just that story was just beautifully connected. So we can say, if she said it was years of Hasidic learning, then we can assume that maybe it was more than any other idea, it was this particular Torah that we want to study this evening. It's something that is ascribed or was said by Rabbi Zusha of Anipoli, one of the greatest and most interesting and most colorful Hasidic characters, Rabbi Zusha of Anipoli. And Zusha means sugar or sweet, and he was very, very sweet. And he had the tendency to speak of himself in the third tense, of saying, well, Zusha likes this, and Zusha does that, and Zusha was a naughty boy, and Zusha will do tshuva now, and so on. And part of his colorfulness, and this was said of him by his rabbi, who was the Maggid of Mezrich, second generation of Hasidut, he said that Reb Zusha used to say that you can learn something from anyone, and he actually sat down and listed 7 things that you can learn from a thief. And this appears in a book, a very basic book in Chabad. It's called Hayom Yom. It's a collection of Hasidic proverbs that every day the Hasidim, they open the book. It takes you just a few seconds. It's a short idea or a proverb or sometimes it's just a minhag. And so this is for Gimel Iyal, third of Iyal. And that's the list of the 7 things that you can learn from a thief. So I'll just read them quickly, and then we'll go over them one by one. And then we'll see that there's even another version with some more things, and it expands from there. But let's start by reading the 7 things. So the first thing, very beautiful, is a thief is modest. Hatznei lechet. He doesn't want to be seen. He's under cover of darkness. He's very tzanua. So you can learn from a thief how to be tzanua. Second is he's willing to take risks. That's a good thing. He's not afraid. He's willing to take a lot of risk for what he's doing. Third, he cares about little things as much as he cares about big things. When he comes into a house to steal, he wouldn't steal just the most important expensive things. He would also steal whatever could maybe be a little expensive. He cares about the details. That's the third thing to learn from a thief. Fourth thing, he goes to great trouble, tircha rabba, and he works very hard. He's very industrious. He works hard worker. Fifth is zrizut, alacrity. He has to work very fast before he will get caught. So working fast is another wonderful thing to learn from a thief. Number 6, he's boteach umekaveh. He has a lot of bitachon, trust in Hashem. He trusts Hashem to help him. That's a well-known thing that's written in the Gemara, that even a thief has emunah, that he davens to Hashem, please help this be successful. So even a thief has emunah. So this is it. He trusts Hashem. Boteach u'mekaveh. And the final one, the seventh one, he's persistent. If he fails one day, he'll go back a second time to the same place, and he'll go back again and again until he's able to break in. So it may not be true of all thieves, but at least it's true of some. And these are the 7 things. Now, when we're studying Chassidut, then we're using models that come from Kabbalah, because Chassidut is based on Kabbalah. It's not Kabbalah, because the point is not to know all the secrets of the universe, but we are trying to take the basic models of Kabbalah and use those models to understand the inner structure of things, let's say. And when we have a list of 7, that immediately brings to mind the most basic structure of 7, which is the structure of the 7, it's called the 7 emotive Sefirot. There are 10 Sefirot, 10 channels of divine energy, according to Kabbalah, and they're divided into the 3 higher or more intellectual or more cognitive faculties, when we're talking about how it's all reflected in our own beings, in our own bodies and souls. Then the upper 3 Sefirot have to do with cognitive or higher faculties, and the lower 7 have to do with more emotive, emotional, and what we call really midot, right? Tikkun midot, attributes of the heart. That would be the 7 emotive Sefirot. So we have 7, we need to correspond them. So now we're going to go over them in a different order, because it's not necessarily the order that was written in that book. But if you see what they mean and how they are, then we're trying to put them according to the Sefirot. And then we'll go over each one, and we'll try and sort of imagine, and we're going to picture the thief. And because, again, from my point of view, walking through the streets, I can't stop thinking about robberies. That's all you see when you don't live here. And for you it's invisible. For me it's all the time, all the signs of call and don't think twice, and how does it say, zero tolerance to crime and all this. So you can't stop thinking. And just one little thing before this, if you think about an electric fence, right? So I translate everything into Hebrew. It's my mother tongue, but it's also Lashon HaKodesh, right? So we should really always translate everything into Hebrew to think about it. So I think about Gader Chashmalit. That's an electric fence. Chashmal is a very beautiful, interesting word, because it's a very ancient, it's a biblical word, but nobody knows what it means. It appears only in one context, which is the vision of the chariot, Maaseh Merkava, in the opening of Ezekiel, Sefer Yechezkel. There's the vision of the chariot, and then the word Chashmal appears several times, but it's only there. So if it appears in one context, you can't understand what it means. And it's even more frustrating, because it says there was a certain light that was like Chashmal, but I don't know what Chashmal is. It's Ke'eina Chashmal. What does it mean? So Chazal, they broke it up into 2 words. And they say Chashmal is Chashmal. Chash means to be silent, and Mal means to speak. And this has been taken up by Chassidut to be a very important general rule, that everything you see, you want to understand it. So again, it's like a fence. It divides between you and the world. Gader Chashmalit, right? And then when you get to the fence, you're looking at something, you have to sort of create a distance, create a fence. And then you have to be quiet a little bit. When you're quiet, you're able to go deeper, both deeper into yourself and deeper into whatever it is you're looking at. So if we wouldn't be silent for a moment, we would say thieves are bad, thieves are criminals, and we have these traumatic stories about thieves, and that's it. And you should just have the fence and just keep them out. That's it. That's all I want to think about thieves, is how to keep them out. But if you're silent for a minute, right? I'm taking the whole electric fence as a metaphor. If you're silent, you say, well, that's one way. That's a more superficial way. In a deeper way, just like the woman I told you about did, that she said, well, she's still a human being, and she did what we call limud zchut. She had a favorable approach to him, right? She thought, well, he's hungry. He's not evil. He's just hungry, and he's at the end of his rope, and that really saved her, maybe even, or at least calmed the boy down. So and if you're silent for a moment, then the speech that comes out, the mal, that's the second half of the word chashmal, that means to speak. So chash is to be silent, and mal is to speak. But the idea is that the speech that comes after the silence is a deeper one. It's a speech that it comes from a deeper place within us, and it echoes and brings out the deeper aspects of people around us, of situations around us. So we want to do now a big electric fence regarding the situation of having so many thieves and robbers around you, and look favorably and with a good eye at thieves and learn 7 things from thieves. It's actually going to become 11, because we're going to add 4 more later on, but we'll start with the 7. So the first one, going over the different sefirot, it's also a nice introduction to the 7 emotive sefirot. First sefirah is called Chesed. Chesed is love, loving kindness, acts of doing good acts of goodness. And this corresponds to what we said, the property of alacrity, quickness, using the time very carefully. A thief has to use his time, has a short window of time to do things. And why does this have to do with Chesed? Because Chesed is a consciousness of constantly doing and giving and moving out of myself in order to do things in the world. If one doesn't have a lot of, if someone is Chesed is not so, the force is not so awake, he would be slower to think twice or to think more about what to do. But if Chesed is working properly, then it would be fast. Yes, let's do it. Let's do another shiur spontaneously. Let's do more. And if we're talking about the thief acting out of hungriness, then maybe the correct way of doing this would say, well, the world is hungry. Other people are hungry. Let's do more. And the consciousness of doing more and doing quicker, that's a good thing to learn from a thief. We can imagine the thief sort of running, and he has to make everything on time and use that as inspiration. Yeah, that's the whole idea of this class, is we want to really be inspired by thieves. And the fact that he's using the time very well, and he knows that his time is limited, that's a metaphor for all of our lives. We have this window of time, it's called our lifetime. And we have to use this time, and every moment lost is really dangerous in a way. So again, it's not your own hunger, it's you. The consciousness is I want to feed the world, physically and spiritually, and for that I need to be constantly on the move. So that's the first thing, corresponding to the attribute of Chesed. And so, number 1. Number 2, the opposite of Chesed, the balancing force of Chesed. The Sefirot, they go that there's one force, and then the balancing one, and then a middle one that tries to combine them in a way. So the balancing force of Chesed is called Gvura. Gvura is might. It's not flowing and running, it's doing something that is really against your nature, and it means assuming a kind of strength. And here, in this case, it's the fact that the thief puts himself in danger. The fact that he's taking risks. And that's another thing we should learn. We shouldn't be overly, what's the word? Paziz in Hebrew would say, foolhardy. Right? We shouldn't be foolhardy, but we should definitely take risks. If you just stay at home, and if you always go for the safe option, you wouldn't do anything significant in your life. And as we can see, as this story tells, something could be in your home and you get robbed in your home. So you're never really safe. And taking that into heart means that we need also to take risks. And taking risks means that not being afraid of doing something that may fail, that may make me a little bit hurt, or we may lose something. And again, imagining that thief in front of us, he has no choice, he has to do it, and he would climb that pipe, the drain pipe, on the outside of the building, or whatever it is, or try and get over the barbed wire, and that there's something to be learned here. There's something to get from this. Why can that thief be more brave, to be braver than I am? I won't have it. I also need to have this kind of bravery. So another wonderful thing, and that's to do with Gvura. Chesed is good, going fast and going more, and Gvura means taking risks. The third this is Tiferet. Tiferet means really harmony. Harmony is taking all the different sides and aspects and ways of looking at things and trying to combine them and see the beauty of combining different points of view. This has to do with the property of the thief, that he he cherishes the small just as he cherishes the big. There's sometimes a tendency to overlook the details. And the fact that the thief would take his time to empty the drawers and take and open everything up and take even small things, again because he needs it, we can take this as an inspiration for caring about things that may only be for the short run, may only seem external, but that's what makes them whole. That's what brings them beauty. Tiferet is a harmonious beauty. Beauty has to do with caring about all the details and not saying that something is too small. When you're studying Torah, you have to care about the details, the letters and the words and their meanings. And when you're organizing your home, you have to care about the details. And even when you're taking care of other people, you have to take care of their small needs just as much as you're taking care of their big needs. So this has to do with Tiferet. Tiferet also has to do a lot with Rachamim, having mercy, showing mercy. When you're merciful, then you don't say, well, I'm just going to help this person or help the situation solve the big problems, because the small problems are as important. When you care, when you truly care about something, then you go for the details as well. So that's the third thing, Tiferet. Now the next one, now we're going lower, it's more practical, it's more this worldly sort of behavioral forces or life forces within ourselves. So the next one is called Netzach. Netzach means either victory or eternity, two things. If you want to be victorious, you want to be victorious in the long run, in the long term. Netzach has to do, and Netzach really has to do with the psychological or spiritual property of confidence, to show confidence. But there's something very interesting. When we say, and also in Jewish sources, in Musar books, and all kinds of places, when we talk about bitachon, confidence, when you go more deeper, you see that it's really two opposite kinds of bitachon, two opposite kinds of confidence. One confidence is called passive confidence. Passive confidence means trust Hashem, and there's nothing you can do about it, so just lift your hands up to the heaven and trust Hashem that it'll be okay. That's a very important kind of confidence called passive confidence. The other kind is called active confidence. Active confidence is a very interesting notion because, in modern secular psychology, one of the most basic concepts is self-confidence. People should be confident, they should be aware of their own talents and their own capabilities, and they should go through the world with self-confidence. There's something from a Jewish perspective that feels a bit uncomfortable with the notion of self-confidence, because we know that one of the dangers of losing emunah, one of the ways of losing faith, is to be overly confident. And Hashem is warning us just before entering the land of Israel that now you're going to be independent, you're going to plow your own fields and grow your own crops, and then you're running the risk of thinking that it's kochi ve'otzem yadi asali et hachayil. It's my own strength and the power of my own arm, right? Kochi ve'otzem yadi, and you forget that it's really Hashem who's giving you all the strength to do whatever it is. On the other hand, if we say then, okay, so self-confidence, we don't want it, because we're so much afraid of kochi ve'otzem yadi, then we're only left with passive confidence. And passive confidence, that's not what Hashem created us for. We sit around and say, well, you do everything. He wants us to be agents, active agents in fulfilling His will and His vision for the world, for rectifying the world. So the combination between self-confidence, which is all, me, and passive confidence, which is all Hashem, is really a careful reading of the verse. Hashem hu hanoten lecha koach la'asot chayil. It's Hashem who gives you the strength to succeed in the world. Means he gave the strength to you. It is within you. It's just not yours. So active confidence is a kind of a rectified way, a more balanced way to take the more secular notion of self-confidence and rectify it. And it goes like this. It says, Hashem has given me all the strength and the power and the talents needed in order to fulfill his will. It's within me. I'm not waiting passively for him to do it. And if he will be pleased by this, he'll back it up. So it's not only up to me. I have to do it. I have to actualize this potential energy or this potential that I have within me. I have to be active confidence. But it's not self-confidence. It's not me. It's just I have confidence in Hashem that He gave me everything I need in order to succeed in doing His will. So if it is His will, He'll back it up. And if He won't back it up, and if I'll fail, then I know that I tried, and I know that maybe it wasn't His will. But I have to try. That's active confidence. That's a bit like Avraham Avinu, that Hashem tells him, walk before me. With Noach, it says that Hashem walked with Noach. But Avraham tells him, walk before me, initiate, be active, be proactive, and I'm going to back you up. I'm behind you. But you have to start. I want you to have initiative. So in this case when we're talking about the thief having confidence in Hashem, obviously it's not passive confidence. He's not sitting at home praying for Hashem to give him. He's coming out of his way, but he's constantly praying to Hashem. He's doing dangerous things. He could be arrested. He could lose his life. So he has active confidence in Hashem. Again, it's weird, it's funny to learn this from a thief, but sometimes that's the best way. Because there's something so powerful about going out there and doing, sometimes the biggest, movies in Hollywood are dafka about the thieves, because they're more interesting than the cops. There are movies about cops, but sometimes the more interesting movies or stories are about the thieves, because there's something more bold and more powerful about the thieves, because they're not backed up by the police force and the state. And there's something incredible to be learned. So they have a lot of active confidence. They use it in a bad way, but it's an amazing thing to learn, that they're not sitting at home waiting. They're saying, I have to take care of my own life, and I'm going out there and I'm going to do things. So active confidence. Next sphera is Hod. That balances the confidence, or the Netzach. Hod has to do with acknowledging that it really goes with Netzach together. It's acknowledging that everything I have is coming from Hashem. And here it has to do with the next thing, the fifth thing in this order to learn from the thief, is that he's industrious, that he works very hard, that he doesn't mind working hard, right? Because he has a lot of humility. How it has to do with being humility, with constantly being grateful for Hashem for giving you power. If you're not grateful, you become lazy. If you are grateful, you're the opposite of lazy. Okay, let's get up and work very hard. I have to work very hard. It has nothing to do with active confidence. It just has to do with the ability, the willingness to say, well, let's do what needs to be done, and Hashem will give me the koach, and working hard. So the thief is a hard worker, and he stays up all night, works during nights, sleeps very little. And that's another thing to learn from the thief, is to be a hard worker, not to be lazy, and not to be, there's something that said that, well, we're taking all this in the spiritual direction, right? So it said that regarding physical property, one should know how to listapek bemuat, to settle for little. Right? In physical things, one should always settle for little. Samech bechelko. One should be happy with one's own lot. This is the lot that I was given, and I'm happy with this lot. But this is only for physical things. Regarding spiritual things, we have to be greedy. We have to be jealous. We have to want more, and to be willing to work hard, and not say, well, that's my lot. That's the little I have, and that's it. It's okay. It's good to want more and more. And this also has to do with the willingness to work hard. Now, number 6. Number 6 is the sphera of Yesod. Yesod has to do with intimate union of male and female and procreation. And this has to do with the thief being very tzanua, very modest. V'atznei alechet. Right, imagine you're a thief, and then the next day you hear on the news how all the news is about how you robbed the bank and nobody knows who the thief is. Then you're happy, because no one knows who you are. You're not happy that you're advertised. You're happy that you got away with it. And that's an amazing thing to learn from. Is we want people to acknowledge what we did and to give us credit and to make us famous. But there's something really beautiful to learn from a thief. He's working very hard. Sometimes it's not just a petty thief. It could be a very intelligent, robber who plans the whole heist. And if he's planning a heist, it's an ingenious thing to do. But even then, he wouldn't want to get credit for it. He would want to remain anonymous. And there's something to be learned from this. This is an amazing thing. You work so hard, don't you want people to acknowledge you? No, it's the last thing I want. I would be put in prison. But I really enjoy the fact that I know what I did, and Hashem knows what I did, and He appreciates at least the technique of what I did. And this is Yesod. We can do things, and there's another Hasidic shiur to be learned from a thief. We can do all this, and we don't need publicity. We don't need it. We can go undercover. And we did it, and that's wonderful. Sometimes if you have to be famous in order to, advertise what you're doing, then you have to, but you don't, at least then you don't approach it from the point of view that this is what you're looking for. You're going to, whatever it takes. If I need to have my picture or my name on it, whatever, I'll have it, but it's not because that's what, and the more you internalize this, the more you free from being angry or disappointed when something is said in your name, or not in your name, something is done that it was through you, it was by your merit, but it's not your name, you're not giving credit. You're okay with it, it's wonderful. I'm like the thief. It could really help you say, well, yeah, I'm like the thief who nobody ever caught, the guy who stole the Mona Lisa, whatever, and where he was caught. But there are some unsolved mysteries to this day, and I could be one of them. I did something nobody knows, but that's wonderful. And then the final one, Malchut, that's the seventh Sephirah. It corresponds to David HaMelech. Each one has a character that's identified with him. This is the fact that the thief doesn't give up. He doesn't despair. If he failed once, he'll go back a second time and a third time until he succeeds. In Sukkot, when we say the blessings of Sukkot, we say about David HaMelech that his tabernacle, his sukkah, is falling. We said in the present tense, Sukkot David ha-nofelet or ha-nofalet. He's constantly falling down. David, there's something about him. He was called Bar Nafla. Bar Nafla means he wasn't supposed to be born. He was supposed to die during pregnancy. That's called nefel in Hebrew. It's like falling. Actually, the word fall comes from the Hebrew word nafal, to fall. So he's constantly falling. He feels that every moment that he has is like a gift, and then he gets up every day. So if you fall all the time and you're aware of your liability to fall, and you accept that, then you become an expert at getting up. There was this rabbi, very interesting rabbi in Yerushalayim, died about 15 years ago. He was called Rav Usher Freund. And then sometime after he died, this whole collection of stories were published that said that he wrote it. It later turned out that it wasn't him, it was his driver. That's another interesting thing. He's just like the modest thief. So nobody knows exactly who wrote it. And now it's ascribed to this Rav. And anyway, it's okay because it's all things that he learned from his Rav. He just turned it into stories. And then one of the stories is about the fallers, Hanoflim. Everyone would go upright, but they would constantly fall, and they would get despair. Why do I always fall? They would tell themselves, I'm always falling. Everyone else is walking, but I'm falling. And then they came to the wise man. That's what the story goes. And he told him, what should we do? And he told them something very simple. He told them, if you fall, just get up again. Sheva ipol tzadik v'kam. A tzaddik falls down 7 times, gets up again. Just get up and keep going. So then they got up and kept going, but they also kept falling. But then, and everyone would still be walking, but they would fall and get up. But then, because of his advice, they said, instead of being impressed by the fact that they fell down, they said, well, now it's obvious that I'm falling down. I'm like David HaMelech, I'm a faller, I'm a bar nafla. I fall, that's my nature. But at least I get up. And then they started calling themselves the standing uppers, the get-uppers, not the fallers, ha-ne'emadim. And then gradually, everyone started calling them the get-uppers. That's the end of the story. Instead of calling them the fallers, they call them the get-uppers, and it goes together. This is David HaMelech. Every breath is a gift, and every moment is new, and I fell, I'm getting up again. I'm starting now, everything's starting now. Well, everything is a gift. So Malchut is the sense of lowliness, also has to do with humility. Specifically, it's called lowliness, shiflut, also cognate a little bit with nofel. Shiflut, lowliness, is not to have yi'ush, not to despair. You failed, try again, you failed, you try again. Keep the optimism going, just like the thief. And there is something to be said, that those people who are, they live in slums and they have the poorest way of life, there's something about them, you see this in India, you probably see this in Africa also, there's something about them, they're happier than the richer people. You see this, you just see this. It doesn't make sense, but it does make sense. There's something about them that they don't have expectations. And I think that's one of the reasons people are attracted to India, is you see the poorest people, they're always smiling, they have toothless smiles, but they're smiling. And you can see this maybe in Africa, I'm sure you can see this in Africa also. So that was the 7 things. Now, this is taken from the Yom Yom of Gimel Iyar. But if you go over other Hasidic sources, you find another version. And the other version, also from the Maggid, quoting Rav Zusha of Anipoli, he says something which expands everything a little bit more. He says like this, he says there are 3 things to learn from a baby and 7 things to learn from a thief. But the thing is that the 7 things to learn from a thief, only 3 of them are the same as the first 7, and there are 4 more, new ones. So the ones they have in common is the modesty one, the tzanua one, which is their phrased as he works during the night, but obviously that's the meaning, that it's modest, and that he cares for everything that's small and as well as big, and that he keeps returning, right? The last thing we said, he keeps returning to the same place. He doesn't give up. But then there are 4 more. So here we're not corresponding them to any particular sfira, because it's not the original source that's more mechuvan. It's more, if it's written at the text, it's more solid. It's another version, but it's also something good to know. So first we'll list the 4 new things about the thief, and then we'll go to the 3 things to learn from a baby, which is a completely new direction to open up in. So the 4 more things to learn from a thief are 1, thieves love one another. In the other version, one of the first thing, I think it's the first, maybe it's the second, out of the list of 7, is thieves love one another. They have a kind of ahavat Yisrael, a kind of camaraderie, and they're loyal to one another, they give tips to one another, and that's a nice thing to learn. You see that among thieves, sometimes there's loyalty that's really surprising, and people who are so immoral regarding other people, but they would be very loyal to at least people within their group or their gang. So that's a very interesting thing. Second one, and this is very interesting because it appears to be the opposite of one of the things from the we went over, is that despite the fact that they care about the small things, just like they care about the big things, once they're stolen, they're willing to sell even something very expensive for very little. They don't have time to haggle, or to compare prices, or to find the highest bidder. They can't worry about this. So when they steal, they care about everything that's very little. But then once it's theirs, they have it and they can move on, it's the very opposite. They don't care how much they're getting or how much, whatever, take it. It's out of my hands. I just wrote a book, so the book I wrote, I cared about every little detail and everything, but now it's out, that's it, now it's not mine, people read it, do whatever you want with it, take it, it's yours, it's the world, it's not mine anymore, you can't hold on to it. So you care about everything before you do something, but once you do something and it's out there, and you're selling it, and you're giving to the world, you don't hang up on the details, it really balances out that's caring about the details, and there's also not hanging to the details, or having dependency on the details. Whatever. I'm concentrating on the next project, on the next thing, and I can stand imperfections, and I'm not going to be, too much demanding of life. That's very interesting. Another thing, opposite, not really opposite, just 2 stages. It's not mine anymore. I'm giving it away. I'm giving it to the world. And I'm easy in in letting go of things, really. It's letting go. It has to do with letting go. The third new thing about this second list is very interesting. Again, I don't think it would apply to every thief, but obviously to some, is that it says that it doesn't matter how much he will be tortured, he will always say, I don't know. That's the third thing out of the list of 4 more things. Regardless of how much he's tortured, he would say, I don't know. I've never seen that house, I don't know. How we were there that night, I don't know. And even under torture. There's something amazing here to be there. It should really connect with the parasha in another way. That I don't know is a very deep thing to incorporate into our emuna world. Right? We learned from Moshe, Lamed picha lomar eini yodea. Teach your mouth to say, to utter the words, I don't know. They're hard to say, but teach your mouth to say them. That's what the Gemara says. That we learned this from Moshe, I don't remember the context. Teach your mouth, because you know you don't know, but it's hard to say, it's hard to admit, but teach your mouth to say, I don't know. And in fact, one of this parsha begins with the words ve'elu hamishpatim, right? And these are the laws. But it's not just laws, because we know the word mishpatim replies to laws that make sense, laws that we can rationally understand, as opposed to chukim, which are laws that don't make sense. And in between, there's a middle category called edot, which is something that I wouldn't think of lechatchila as rationally necessary, but once it's explained to me, I can see the sense of it. Like commemorating the miracles of coming out of Egypt, it's not a logical necessity, but it makes sense to preserve the miracle and to acknowledge it and so on, and preserve the memory. But mishpatim are the ones that make total sense. That we would think of them without the Torah, not to kill and not to steal, and to be just, in the court and in doing business and so on. And one of the Hasidic explanations for the Vav Chibur that opens the parasha, Ve'elu, Rashi says, it goes to tell us, this Vav Chibur, that just like the previous parasha was a divine revelation, so the Mishpatim are the divine revelation. Just like everything before was from Sinai, so all these details, they're also from Sinai. Ve'elu Mishpatim. But then the Lubavitcher Rebbe says it's more than that. It's to tell us that even the Mishpatim, that we can understand their logic, and they make sense, and they're rational, and they're consistent, if we want them, because obviously the Torah could have not listed them, but it did. Although we could have arrived at them on our own. Why? So that ve'elu, the connection is, even the mishpatim I have to do as if they're chukim. So although it makes sense, I want to do it from a level that is because it's a divine law. There's something deeply unknowable about the Torah. There's something infinite about the Torah. Even the part that makes sense, don't think that now you have it and that's it and you're containing it. And now, like, you own it. You don't own it. Even the part that makes sense has an infinite depth that you don't understand. And so, torture is here, all the trials of life. That's like torture. And whatever happens, you always remember the trials and the tribulations and the troubles that you go through in the world. And you're always connected to this level that I don't know, I don't understand. There's a divine mystery that's pulling the strings, and that's something to learn from a thief. And we can see that the 4 new things, they're not as clear-cut thievery or thieves' qualities, but maybe that's why they didn't make the list that's in the first. But it's also something to think about. And the 4th one is also something like this. It says, again, not obvious at all, and not so clear about thieves, but we can again take it, learn something from it. The 4th one is he loves his job, the thief, and he wouldn't replace it for any other job. So again, I can imagine some thieves who wouldn't fall into this description, but that's what the source says. He loves his job, and he wouldn't give for the world. He wouldn't give it up for anything else. And we can say we can learn from this to, like I said, on the physical level, we do have to be sameach b'chelkeinu, happy with our own lot, and say, this is what I have here and now. This is the money I have. This is the job I have. This is the life I have. This is the house I have, and I wouldn't want to replace it for anything in the world. If Hashem wants to bring me something more, I would be happy. But right now, I'm happy with what I have. And if this is my job, I'm a thief. I like being a thief. And so to enjoy, to appreciate what you have, even if you could have much more, is another thing to learn from a thief. So that was just add, just so we know everything that Rabbi Zusha said, or that was said in his name, or said on different occasions. It's not just the first 7, there's also 4 more. But like we said, this second source also says something else, which adds something that really makes this whole idea far more complete. There were 7 things to learn from a thief. Again, a different list of 7, but 7 things. Again, it's the 7 attributes of the heart, the 7 emotive sefirot, but 3 things to learn from a baby. So again, the baby is like the thief in the sense that on the surface, without the chashmal, without the electric fence, we would say, the baby has to learn from me. I don't have to learn anything from the baby, right? But no, you can learn, mitalmidai yoter mikulam. I have learned from my students more than from my rabbis and from my friends. And I can learn from everyone. And of course, what's beautiful about the numbers here is that 3, as we said, corresponds to the higher faculties, and 7 to the lower faculties, which means that the baby here is above the thief. And the baby has to do with consciousness, not with emotions or behaviors or habits or ways of, feeling out the world. It has to do with the basic consciousness in which I have to approach. There's something about that so again, it's counterintuitive, because we would think that the higher level, the more adult I am, the more mature I am, the more I understand the world, then the farther I am away from a baby. That's what I want. I want to be an old man. I want to have the head of an old man, not the head of a baby. But that's true compared to childish or immature ways of looking at the world. But when you're looking up at Hashem, you have to feel like a baby. Because it doesn't matter how much Torah you learned, and how many years you've lived in the world, and how many things you've seen, you're still forever infinitely far from Hashem, just as the baby is. And you and the baby are absolutely on the same par, same level. We're all infinitely far from Hashem. And so the Torah says, Torat Hashem tmima meshivat nafesh, right? We sing this in Simchat Torah. Torat Hashem tmima meshivat nafesh. Hashem's Torah is whole or complete, and it restores our soul. And so a classical reading of this would say, when does this Torah restore our souls, or bring us back our feeling of being alive? It's only when you study all of it. Tmima. If you study just part of it, you could get the wrong impression. It's not a good way of life. You have to study both the stories and the mitzvot and the halachot and all the different things, and then you study everything, then you get a balanced understanding of Judaism, of the Torah, and everything. But the Baal Shem Tov, he couldn't stand this kind of, it's said by the sages, so obviously it's true, but he could immediately sense the danger. The danger is that at some point people would be telling, so now I know all the Torah. I went all the Masechtot, I finished the Daf Yomi, and I finished even Be'iyun also, and I learned everything there is. And that's something, and then you lose the consciousness of a baby. So he offered another reading. And the other reading is, when does the Torah restore our nefesh? When it's tmima, in the sense that it's like this magical cake that no matter how many slices you take away, it's still full, it's still complete. You haven't had anything, and walking around with the consciousness that no matter how many Torah I've learned, I haven't learned anything. It's still a complete mystery in some way, right? Just like Eini Yodea, I don't know anything yet. The Torah is still 100% of a mystery for me, and I ate a lot. I learned a lot. But constantly having this consciousness that I'm like a baby revitalizes you. It restores your nefesh, your life, your breathing. It revitalizes you. So 3 things to learn from a baby, and they very clearly correspond to the 3 intellectual faculties, which are called Chokhmah, Binah, and Dat. So the first one, again, not in the right order, but the first thing that it says, to learn from a baby, right? With Chavad that Bathsheba is not here anymore, she could have been a living illustration of the thing, is that, and it's actually, it's a bit self-contradictory, but that's how it should be. The first is that baby is always happy. He's always happy. And this corresponds to Bina. Why Bina? Because Bina is said has to do with joy. Bina has to do with the verse Em habanim smecha hallelujah. The mother of the children is happy. There's an inner deep joy in understanding things. Bina is understanding. It says there's no simcha as hatara. The fact that you even have a cognitive faculty, that you can read something and you're not illiterate, there's something to be constantly grateful for. And this is joy. The baby is always happy. It's just happy, very happy. And that's the first thing. The second thing is that a baby is never, or a toddler, maybe it's better, is never idle. Eino yoshev batel. Now that's interesting. Batel has to do with another important word, which is bitul. Bitul is selflessness. That has to do with chokhmah. Chokhmah is the partner of bina. Chokhmah is more masculine. Chokhmah has to do with selflessly committing to Hashem's will. Now, about the toddler, it says, Eino yoshev batel. He's not idle. He doesn't have bitul. But we can combine the two. It's not contradictory. We say that when we're batel to Hashem, when we're selfless and we're nullified, that's the word, nullification. Bitul is nullification. So when we're nullified, when we're just going all the way with Hashem, then down here we're not idle at all. Chokhmah is just above chesed, and chesed is the alacrity, moving and doing. And the source of this is saying is I'm out of the picture. I'm just a vessel or a channel for Hashem, and He's working through me. I'm nullified. Because I'm nullified, I can be constantly on the move, constantly doing things. So it's taking up the chesed attribute of being fast and quick and doing things and being on the move, is not being idle through having bitul, not being batel, idle through having bitul, through being nullified to Hashem. And then the third one is the most beautiful one, and that's really caps off everything. That's the best thing to learn from a baby, and it appears to contradict the first thing. But part of this higher faculties is that they can carry opposite views of things. They can carry paradoxes. They don't mind having paradoxes. And the third thing is that the baby cries his heart out when he's missing something, when he doesn't have something. For whatever it is that he doesn't have, he cries about it like it's the end of the world, like it's like his life is ending. And we see this all the time. A little boy, a little child, a little girl, if they don't have what they want, they could, no, it's like the world, everything is collapsing. They cry their heart out. This is dat. Why is this dat? Dat, knowledge, is Chokhmah and Binah. There's something about them that they think about things from afar. Dat is when I feel that it touches my life, it concerns me, and I it's almost like I touch it. And I'm in Hebrew, when you care about something, one of the ways to describe it is nogea ladavar. You touch the matter. You're not objective about it. And it's important, in the intellectual level, that is subjective, it's not objective. It comes from caring and being involved and not being alienated or cool or detached or distant. You have to care, you have to be there. And that's dat. And just coming here, I saw this event that wants to talk about Talmudic issues and how they refer to life. And they used one of the things that are said in a siyum of a masechet. When you finish a masechet in the Gemara, there's this whole thing that we say in the end, just before the Kaddish. And one of the things is we finish the masechet and then we say, Da'atan alach ve'da'atach alan. Our da'at is for you, and you, the masechet, Your dat is for us, or on us. So we think about you and you think about us. This is how we finish the Masechet. It has to do with dat, two kinds of dat. So it means I'm finishing the Masechet, but I want to bear it in mind all the time. I don't want to let go of it. Datan alach. Our dat will remain with you. We're closing the book, but we're not leaving you, oh dear Masechet. Our dat is still with you. Our dat is always, our hand, metaphorical hand, is always on you to carry. And you reciprocate by, you think about us also. Da'atach alan, your dat should be on us. So dat is about breaking the barrier. Here it's really breaking the fence in a way between us and the world. And that is, when I care about something, I cry about it. This is why Torah is different from philosophy. Philosophers have always been anti-crying. They say crying is irrational. It's for non-philosophers. Ever since the days of Socrates in Greece, crying was reserved for simple people, are not philosophers. But as we know, the sages and all the Jewish heroes, Yosef and David, and they cry. They cry because they care, because they're not philosophers. If you're just Chokhmah and Binah, you're maybe a philosopher. But then, in order to stop being a philosopher, you have to have dat. Dat crosses the barrier between the head and the heart, between the intellect and the emotive faculties, and really between us and the world. So that's the best thing to learn from a baby, is that because he really cares about something, he takes it to heart, and he cries his heart out. Bechol libo. So that's our Hizbon Mitzvah for this week. It came out of Mishpatim because it spoke about the thieves, and because that was what I was thinking about this week. And we should all go back to our lives and keep in mind, even if we don't remember all the details from this shiur and all the 7 things and the 3 things and the 4 more things other than the 7, at least whatever made an impression can be with us. And the most important thing, we can put this on the ketel that's above both the thief and the baby. And the ketel, the headline for all of this, is there's something to be learned from everything and from everyone. And whatever negative person that I come across or negative activity, then if not at that moment, then afterwards I should go and say, well, and I just finished with one tiny little story that is said about the Alter Rebbe, that he, in the Pirkei Avot, it says, you should be humble before every person. And when he wrote the Tanya, he added mamash. So really every person. And then one day, he came out of his office and he said, now I have a test, I have a nisayon. Because someone just came into my office who went over every transgression in the Torah. He did all the worst imaginable things. And I wrote in the Tanya that you should be humble in front of every mamash, every person, not just every person, mamash. And then it said, he sat down and thought about it for 3 minutes. And then he could come up with a list of 7 things that he could learn from this other person, in which he had something to learn from him. He thought for 3 minutes, he was a baby for 3 minutes, and he had the baby consciousness, and then from that thief or robber or murderer or whatever he was, he said, well, 7 things I can learn from him if I put my mind to it. And this could all give us a lot of koach and a lot of, to open our eyes, to look at the word more deeply, to be silent for a moment, and then to find a deeper speech, the chashmal. So, thank you.